accordingly. So we hope it's beneficial. Please, no hand gestures during the situation. Mark Shaw, no hand gestures except for waving. Steve Baxter, Michael Kaiser, Dean Covey, Keith, the hodgepodge of chamber members. So we're waiting for the senator to zoom in any moment now, and we will have our friend Vince Mayfield take over. So Seth is going to mute everybody, but anyway, glad you're here. A wonderful chamber benefit. Mary Beth, thanks again for making the arrangement.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Stop talking.
I
When they said mute, it's just on the microphone, not in real life. You know.
it is.
when I unmute them, it sends them a request to, so she, it pops up a little, you're being asked to unmute, and so they have to on their end accept that, and so.
I'm unmuted. Senator, oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now.
There you go.
All right, so who's starting off?
Mitch.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome, Ormac.
Yes, Senator Rubio, on behalf of the 2,000 members and businesses of the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce, we want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. I'm Vince Mayfield. I am the 2020 chair for the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce, and I am also the CEO and founder of 2 tech companies. And we want to thank you for serving our country and representing the great state of Florida.
Thank you. I'm assuming you can hear me fine?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, I would like to also extend to you an invite. The next time you fly through Eglin Air Force Base or get up into the Panhandle, we'd love to extend an invitation to have you come visit us and experience some of our hospitality in the Destin, Fort Walton Beach area. We used to have Senator Nelson come up once a year, and we'd be honored to have you up here. I think you'd find that you're quite popular in our community, and we would welcome the opportunity to host you. But again, thank you in the time of COVID for meeting with us today and speaking with us.
Yeah, and so I was actually up there from July 3rd to July 12th we try to go up around 4th of July every year. We've pretty much done it all but 2 of the last 10 years. So we were right up there at that time as well, and we enjoyed it as usual, and the weather was great, and got to meet with a few folks over in Panama City Beach, and spent a lot of time over at Water Sound. So we had a great visit, and so you don't have to invite us twice. We'd love to come back again, time permitting. So.
Yes, sir. So if you'd like, I can step right into the questions for you. Or
yeah, let's go right to it.
First? Yes, sir. Okay, so we solicited some questions from some of our members, and the first question comes from Mark Shaw, who's a restaurant owner and in our local area, and Stephen Perkins of Warren Hayward CPAs. And the question is, business owners are receiving PPP loans. We're told that the amount of the loan forgiveness they receive from a PPP loan would not be considered taxable income. However, the IRS Notice 2020-32 states that that they are going to disallow any federal income tax reduction for the payments used from the forgiven PPP loan. Now, not allowing those tax deductions for expenses will effectively saddle business owners with a significant tax burden from the PPP loan forgiveness that was meant to help business owners keep people employed and keep them strong. We'd like to know, is there anything being done to prevent the IRS from disallowing our payroll, rent, and utility deductions that we paid for with our PPP loans in 2020?
There's that video. He dropped off on us. He's still there, but he pulled his AirPod out. Oh, there we go.
We can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, it got muted again because apparently if I touch these earphones or remove them, it turns the thing off. But I got right back on and I heard the question. So that was not the intent of the law. In fact, when we priced out PPP, when we put the price tag on it, what it would cost, it assumed that it would not be taxable. That's an IRS interpretation that we've argued back and forth with them on, and we don't agree with the interpretation. So we're going to have to make it clear in the law that it's not taxable. And there's an effort right now to do it, either as part of the next round of PPP, whenever we pass the next COVID bill, which I'm hoping will happen, fairly soon, or before the end of the year. But I can just tell you, across the board, there's strong support for making that abundantly clear in the statute. The IRS is always going to interpret things in the most revenue collecting favorable way. But when we added up the numbers, when we put a price tag on, when we designed PPP, the Joint Tax Commission, everybody assumed that this would not be taxable, and they claim that it's a loss of revenue, but that's theoretical. That's actually false, because as I tell them repeatedly, if we hadn't done PPP you would have collected zero because many of these businesses would not be operating. They would have gone out of business. And not only would you be collecting zero this year, you'd be collecting zero next year. So I'm not sure we're going to win the argument with them on the regulatory side. We're going to have to change the law and make it clear.
Sir, thank you. There's a lot of interest in the PPP loan. So the next question that we've got for you, sir, comes from Mid-South Bank president. Between the banking and the CPA Society newsletters, we've read that you are working on trying to advance legislation for the forgiveness of all PPP loans up to $150,000. We presume it would be some affidavit or certification signed by the borrower, but it would eliminate the banks having to research, collect, and process documentation proving the use of PPP funds. What's your read on the forgiveness simplification efforts? Many of the large national banks are delaying the forgiveness analysis process, presumably in hopes of this simplification might become law.
Yeah, so there is support for that from some people, and I want to tell you what the balancing act is. My sense of it is that if you announce something like, or if you do something like that too soon, before all the PPP money from round one has been spent, then there's no guarantee that the money will be spent according to the 60-40, ratios. And at the end of the day, the selling point, what allowed it to pass this bill was that it was spent on payroll, 60% of it, because as our argument is if you didn't keep people on payroll, then they'd be on unemployment and you'd have to pay for it anyway. It's much better to just provide them assistance to payroll instead. So that's the concern, right? If you announce, if it's under 100,000, you're not going to have to fill out forgiveness. Well, then people can not spend it on payroll. So that's been what's held that up. I think there is some support for the idea of allowing it to be forgiven. And I'll tell you, under a certain number. And the rationale for it is that, again, when we priced this out, we never intended to, this was never built as a way to make a 1% interest on a loan, right? The banks were paid a fee to process this. It's 100% guaranteed. This was created as a grant program. And the only reason why the whole forgiveness thing was built in was to create an incentive to drive some of that spending towards payroll to prevent people from becoming unemployed. But I think that's probably an issue that, along with the tax one, will be revisited. That one probably a little bit later, probably not as part of the second round, but maybe before the end of the year. And we've also pushed hard to continue to simplify. When it first came out, the forgiveness process was like 8 or 9 pages. Now it's down to 2, and we want to make that as simple to meet as possible.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. The next question comes from Seth Luttrell, who is our operations officer here at the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce. Chambers of Commerce were specifically excluded from the PPP loans. In the potential second round of stimulus, are you working on anything, Senator, to get 501c6s, specifically chambers, added to those who are not eligible for PPP loans?
Yeah, in round 2, that's actually in there. It says all C6s that are local, that are economic development organizations would be eligible. So we have to sort of narrow it to that, because C6s also include all sorts of political organizations and lobbying organizations and, people that spend money on elections. So we had to, but it makes pretty clear. Bottom line is, if you're a local chamber of commerce with less than 300 employees, and you're included in the round 2 proposal, and we haven't had a lot of pushback on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As you know, President Trump passed or did the payroll tax executive order, but it basically just delays the collection of that tax to the end of the year. And many business owners, especially small business owners, are not going to be prepared to pay the taxes or really understand that that's going to come due at the end of the year. Is there anything being done to change or to work within that executive order, do something different through Congress to make that more clear and not have the business owners end up with a tax burden at the end of the year they didn't plan for?
Yeah, so when Congress didn't pass a bill because the Democrats sort of locked down and said it's either $3 trillion or nothing, the president said, well, what can I do? An executive order, because he's limited in what he can do. And the 2 things he could do is, 1, he could create an additional unemployment benefit on top of the state unemployment by allowing states to borrow money from the Department of Labor. And number 2 is this payroll tax, as you said, deferral. I think of the two, the second one is just not workable. I understand and we appreciate the effort. I just don't think that's going to work. In essence, delaying the payroll tax collection now and then hitting everybody with a big bill at the end of the year is just not a feasible plan for most people. It's a nice effort, a nice gesture. It sort of shows that they're trying to the extent they can to get something done, but that one I don't think can be fixed, and I doubt there'll be a lot of uptake on it because of that. It's just not I don't think it's workable, to be honest with you. You're gonna have to pay. All you're doing is deferring when you'd have to pay it. You still have to pay it. So deferral might help a few people. I'm not saying it won't. I don't know, but I don't think really it's broad-based something we can make workable. You either have to delay the whole thing and you either have to cancel out the whole thing, or just not workable. And that's my personal view. So I'm not sure how we could improve on it, because frankly, for most businesses, it doesn't really make sense to have to pay it all in one bunch at the end of the year anyways.
Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you. One other question from our members, many of our members are concerned with some of the proposals with the second round of stimulus. Right now, especially our tourism and hospitality industry, they're having trouble hiring people when they're being paid $850 a week to stay at home. The jobs are there, but government is incentivizing them to stay at home. And moreover, with many people now choosing to homeschool, this gives them an additional incentive to sit home and basically get paid and not come back to work. How are we going to structure the second round of stimulus so that we can get people back to work as opposed to being dependent upon and incentivized by government to stay at home?
Yeah. So, and that's actually one of the sticking points right now in the negotiation. I'm pretty confident it's not going to be $600 on top of the state benefit. So what's being talked about now is a little less. Look, the ideal outcome, and it's a tough one to get to, is you're helping the people who legitimately can't find a job, but you're not incentivizing people who can find a job to go back. And then added to that argument are the people that say, I could go back to work, but I have an underlying health condition and I could get really sick and so forth. And that's a tough, that's a tough deal to sort of balance. So there's been all kinds of theories out there about, well, make it 70% of their income, make it 60% of their income. The problem is the states say that's just unworkable. I mean, they struggle just to implement the $600 on top of the state benefit. So if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, in order to get a bill passed, in order to get another round of PPP, we're going to have to make a deal with Democrats, and they're going to insist on something for unemployment. So my sense is that it'll be less than $600. I don't know if it's going to be 200 or 300, but it'll be less. And as a result, we'll still provide additional benefit, but it will lessen or lower the number of people that are making more on unemployment than they would working. Ultimately, anytime you provide a government program, there's going to be abuse in it. I personally still believe that the overwhelming majority of Americans would rather have a job that they know is for sure than a short-term benefit. But we've heard from a lot of small businesses and employers that this is a challenge, and we have to account for that as well. So my gut is we're going to have to do something on unemployment in order to get a deal, but it isn't going to be $600. It'll be less, maybe 400, 300, or 200. We'll see how that works out. That's where I think it's headed.
Thank
But
you.
right now it's not. I mean, it went away. It's been gone now for 3 weeks. So right now it's not a factor.
Yes, sir. The next question kind of relates to that. And I'm in the tech business, and as you know, the H-1B visa program has often been abused by big tech and in some cases larger corporations. But a lot of our members are dependent upon some of the guest worker visa programs to help with the hospitality and tourism industry with people not getting back to work right away. What are some of the plans, both one, to stop some of the abuses in the H-1B visa so we can get American workers back to work, and then also with the guest worker visa programs that allow some of our hospitality, tourism, and outdoor industry to do some of the work that they do. What do you see, and what types of things are going to happen with respect to either widening, decreasing, or tightening those programs?
Well, on the H1, I think two things that are important reforms are you sort of tighten the sort of jobs that fit that profile. And the second, frankly, is to produce more American students who graduate and with these proficiencies to fill these roles. And we have to do them both. I mean, we have to create more of that the domestic supply, And we need to see that reflected in the degrees and the course of instruction that people are pursuing, at the same time as we sort of narrow tighter sort of what truly is what fits this H1 profile. In the H2 profile, I mean, one of the challenges, we're facing two challenges, and actually in both programs. The first is that there's these companies that sort of come in early and grab all of the spots on day one, and so they're gone within hours. So we really need to cut down on that sort of consultancy, grabbing all of them at once, because it's not even the direct employer. They then subcontract that labor out. And then the second challenge to it, frankly, is administrative, and that is that the entire immigration and naturalization process right now is in a lot of duress. They're not processing visas. They're not processing citizenships at the same level. Their staffing levels are down, and they're running into budget problems because these agencies are funded by the fees they collect on these applications. So there was already a short-term problem in place for the H2 program that I think needs to be improved, and this has just compounded it. And I think that if you could do a bill that just dealt with that issue, you could get like 90 votes for it. There's a reasonable path forward on both of them. The problem is they never let you do anything that has to do with immigration and visas on its own. Some side is going to stand up and say, well, we'll do this. We all agree on it, but we'll only do it if you include, amnesty, or we'll only do it if you include the border wall, or we'll only do it if you include the DREAM Act. And it always gets caught in the broader issue. So we can't do the things we agree on because it's held hostage by the things we don't agree on. And that's been the impediment to getting it solved and fixed. And that continues to be the impediment right now.
Thank you, sir. Last question is, I'm going to change the title a little bit. Matt Turpin of Bank of England Mortgage writes, he says, as you know, the Gulf of Mexico moratorium is critical to our military mission at Eglin Air Force Base. And also preserving the environment is critical to our tourism industry, as we all know from the BP oil spill. Can you provide an update for us, sir, on the drilling moratorium and how you believe it's going to play out with the temporary restrictions in place right now over the long haul?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the moratorium. I wish we could make it permanent. That would be ideal. I don't think we can get that passed. So my push is to get it extended. And I'm for it for two reasons. The first is that range is impossible to replace. Now, we have nothing else stateside that we can do the kinds of things that we do out there. It's a national security treasure for our country. So that has to be protected. The other reason I'm for it is because I don't know who in Florida is in favor of, it's just across the board, Republican, Democrat, every community. It's a broad support for the notion that we should have a moratorium. So I represent a state where no one's in favor of drilling, or there's no real constituency in favor of it. So it's pretty clear what my job is to get it done. The update is twofold. Ideally, we would like to get it in statute. We want to put it in the law because that makes it, no matter what happens in the future, it makes it certain. Right now, Interior is going through its internal process of revisiting the broader planning for the drilling and the leases. And as part of that process, they're considering all of this. I remain optimistic that we are going to get a decision on it that's positive, but they have to go through the process of doing it the right way. Otherwise, whoever is on the losing side of that decision is going to file a lawsuit and say that the process wasn't followed. So we're pursuing it on two fronts. We're pushing really hard for Interior and the White House on Interior to reach that decision, but we also need to get that moratorium at a minimum extended so that it's in the law and we don't have this uncertainty. And we're looking for an opportunity to do that. In essence, we can't pass it as a standalone bill, so we have to find the right law to put it onto as an amendment. But it's one of our top priorities, and it's something we really would like to see get done. And so we can have that peace of mind that no matter what happens moving forward, it's something we're not going to have to worry about for some time.
Outstanding, sir. That's I know that is something that's very near and dear since our economy is made up of both military and tourism. The last question that I've got for you is I just wanted to ask, sir, your vision about how we're going to take America from where it's at right now, coming out of getting through the coronavirus and coming out, and what our future is going to look like, and how you're going to work as our senator to get Congress and the president to get our country moving forward.
Well, it's a time that requires both bold action and also problem solving. On the bold action front, we have to wake up and recognize that we're not living in normal times. And it's not just because of the pandemic. We face an underlying sort of historic moment where we've had these dramatic changes in the world and in the economy. and our policies haven't adjusted for it. I reject socialism 100%. I think it's a disaster. I believe in free markets and I believe in capitalism 100%. I also believe that the job of government is to act in the best interest of our country. And every now and then, a pure market result is not in the best interest of our country. As an example, the market is always going to give you the most efficient outcome. So it is more efficient to build certain things in other countries, like personal protective equipment or pharmaceuticals. It is not in our national interest, however, to rely on China for 80% of our generic drugs. It's not in our national interest to have to rely on China for masks to protect our doctors and nurses. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, the rare earth minerals, you name it. So there are times in which there are things that our country has to be able to do. The bottom line is you can't just be a country that invents things. You also have to be a country that can make the things that you invented, because otherwise you won't be able to invent them either. You'll lose both. We have to rebuild our nation's industrial capacity, and that will require from time to time, not government owning industry, but government making it cost effective for industry to be located in our country. Right now, we can't compete in industry if China says we are going to subsidize our industries, we're going to give our companies unfettered access, we're going to give our companies a monopoly on the Chinese market, and we're not going to allow other companies to compete here, but we're going to demand unfettered access to everybody else's markets. And that's what we've been doing for 25 years, because everybody said, don't worry, they're cheating, but once China gets rich and once they get prosperous, they'll become like us. That's not what happened. So we have to rebuild our industrial capacity because of our national security interest, and ultimately because it creates really good jobs. And those jobs aren't just about paychecks, they're about dignity. They're about what it means to be able to go to work every day and provide for your family. What it means is you can be a husband or a wife, you can raise children, you can volunteer in the community. It's good for our culture, it's good for our society, it's good for our families, it's good for our communities. So we have a vested national interest in rebuilding our industrial capabilities, both from a national security perspective and also from a national perspective as a country, economic and socially. And that has to become a priority. We really have to remember that. And it doesn't require socialism, but it does require that in some key industries, we have to do what it takes to make it cost effective and efficient to do it in America. And that's what I've been working on, to bring back pharmaceutical manufacturing, to bring back heavy industry, and to do what we can so that American companies can be competitive. A part of that is Buy American requirements for our government. That creates demand for those products. And part of that is just saying, look, we want industry like that in America. We never want to be a country that can't build ships. We never want to be a country that can't build airplanes. And we never want to be a country that can't build the things that we invent. That has to be a big pivot that we make in our economic policies. And we have to approach it, in my view anyways, from a center-right, free market, free enterprise perspective. But we have to do it. You cannot be a great, powerful country if you're not an industrial power. So it is really important we remember that and get back to that. And we've lost our way on that. We really have. And a perfect example of it is you're having record days on Wall Street and really tough times on Main Street. Not because Wall Street's doing anything wrong, but because certain stocks that rely on global supply chains and are in certain industries are doing really well. But a lot of other industries are not. They're not one and the same. We need both. We need health in both places. And we've forgotten the second one and only focused on the first. So that's my hope, that we can push us in that direction, and I'll continue to work to make that possible.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Seth, do we have any other questions?
Well, I want to ask, look at Scott over there from Chester Bar. Look what he's changed his screen name to. I think we should ask the senator about that.
Yeah.
About what?
Yes. It's,
About what?
one moment, sir. Can you all see?
So he's changed his name, sir, to Rubio for 2024. So we hope that you will look at running for president again, sir. We'd love to see that.
Well, I can't commit to that, but I can tell you for certain I'm not if they don't have a vaccine. And I mean a vaccine against everything, not just one thing.
We do not have anything submitted via chat. We can, solicit if anybody wants to submit a chat question. I don't know how long the senator.
Ask if he has any good jokes.
Ted Corcoran would like to know, sir, if you have any good jokes you'd like to tell.
Not on this thing, no.
We'll get Seth to quit recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
It's off the record, sir, off the record.
Sure.
It's awesome. Thank you.
I would just ask if he has anything else he would like to.
Yeah, just ask this.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add, sir?
No, just hang in there. Look, it's going to get better. I mean, I look at the numbers every day. Florida's trending in a really good direction. I know that the case numbers have been so small just in terms of numerically. I think it's averaging about 100 something a day in Walton, Fort Walton Beach area and in Broader County that the positivity rate statewide is a pretty good indicator. And, you know, it's coming down. I mean, people are doing the right thing. And I also think, I always tell people, don't cancel October yet, because I think we're going to be in a different place for a couple of reasons. There's some new medicines that are being innovated, this monoclonal antibody medicines that will, it's provides some short-term protection, but what it does is it actually, if they work, and we're very hopeful that they will, it'll shorten the duration of the disease and its intensity. That would be a really big deal. I mean, that would, you talk about lowering hospitalization rates and the mortality rate, that would help. We're going to have a vaccine faster than ever in history. We're going to probably have multiple vaccines. And in fact, the companies are so optimistic about the vaccine results that they're already making it. I mean, they're already manufacturing it. And if we could just get that out there to healthcare workers and those in nursing homes and on the front lines and in high risk populations, I mean, the numbers, you would change the total nature of this. The rapid testing capabilities, that's the one thing that I really am pushing hard on that we should have done differently. We should have a national rapid testing strategy where you're able to test people as often as possible, very cost effective, $6 or $7. It doesn't have to be 100% accuracy. It has to be high 90-something% accuracy for people that have enough of the virus to be infectious. If you could do that, if you could test everybody every day at home for $5 or $3, just imagine, I mean, the kinds of things we would be able to do and the confidence people would have. We really need to push things in that direction. The combination of those three things are going to help us turn the corner. We're not going to be here at this time next year, but we're going to have some tough times ahead that we're going to have to confront. And there's going to be some lagging effects of all of this. So we're really pushing hard, especially for those of you in hospitality. You know, the hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, entertainment, they were the first ones in and they're going to be the last ones out. So we really have to focus on providing assistance and ensuring, because it provides a lot of employment, especially in a state like Florida. It's such a critical part of our economy. And it's one that we focus on, whether it's in PPP or anything else. And so I'm cognizant of our challenges, but I'm also optimistic about some of the things that lie ahead if we keep moving in the right direction. And we're going to get there. So just hang in there.
Well, thank you, Senator. Again, we want to thank you for serving our country and representing Florida the way that you do. Please keep fighting the good fight. And most importantly, once you guys get the right legislation enacted, make sure that it's executed on. Execution is the key.
Yeah, it sure is. And that's why we pushed so hard on it the last time. It was a work in progress. We did it very quickly. But to their credit, I have a lot of beef with SBA and some of the things they did and how some of the things were handled and so forth. But they made about a quarter century worth of loans in 8 weeks. That's a lot. So we helped a lot of people. It wasn't perfect, but it was certainly better than not doing anything. And it's going to be even better because we've learned lessons from it, and we're building on that. So thanks for having me today. I look forward to seeing you guys in person, getting back up there.
Yes, sir. You're welcome anytime. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Well, that was awesome.
Yeah, really. It's great.